The Legend of Zelda series has a passionate fan base with a wide variety of takes. Recently I've been looking ahead at the future of the Zelda franchise, and in the comments I've seen some absolutely wild takes. Well, today I'm going to be responding to your Legend of Zelda hot takes. If you like the video, then subscribe for more Zelda content here on Triforce Times, and we're just very close to 6,000 subscribers, so I'd really appreciate if you hit that like button and also subscribe as well. Okay, without further delay, let's dive into these hot takes. So first of all, we've got Jade Johnson Industries, and they say Breath of the Wild was so innovative that if Link can't go shirtless and barefoot in the next game, then it shan't sell anywhere near as well. Well, yes, Jade, absolutely agree. Is it a coincidence that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are the highest selling Zelda games of all time, and both start with Link shirtless? I think not. Well, next up we've got Soul Rebellion, and Soul says, Impa should be a chicer warrior more than a boring old lady. Well, thanks, Soul. Yes, we do see Impa the warrior in Ocarina of Time, and also Hyrule Warriors as well. She's an old lady in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, although we saw a hybrid in Echoes of Wisdom, with Impa being an old lady and being a warrior, beating up loads of troops inside Hyrule Castle. I know what you mean though, it definitely would be good to see warrior Impa a little bit more often. Next up we've got Time and Vote, and they say, Majora's Mask is extremely overrated. The amount of dungeons is way too small, the bosses, except for Goat, just have really boring fights. The 3-day cycle element is poorly executed. While the masks are fun in concept, they're all just really weird and boring, and the only one even slightly fun is the Goron mask. I do like the dark theme, but it's extremely poorly executed. The idea of one is the best in the series. The idea is one of the best in the series, but they aren't living up to the actual game. Well, thank you, Time and Vote. I don't agree with this one. Actually, I think Majora's Mask is underrated and not as appreciated as it should be. Yes, the masks are weird, but to be honest, I think that's the point. The fact it was created so close to Ocarina of Time with such a unique theme, amazes me to this day. Next up we've got Daniel8181, and Daniel says Ocarina of Time's puzzles aren't actually puzzles, but instead they're Busywork. The game forces exposition on you constantly. It's a horrible approach to storytelling, especially in video games, and about half the game is fetch questing, and Fi isn't any more annoying than Navi. Well, thank you, Daniel, appreciate your take. This is a bold take. I don't think the puzzles are Busywork. For example, navigating through the desert with the lens of truth towards the back end of the game, I think is very, very good. Yes, there is some exposition, but it was innovative for its day, and it is nearly a 27-year-old game. And I have to disagree with you about Fi and Navi. I look back much more fondly on Navi saying listen, rather than Fi's constant interruptions in Skyward Sword. Next up we got Gaming Reinvented, and they say making Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity about time travel was the right move. Yes, you could say past a certain point it was not the Breath of the Wild prequel that people wanted, but gameplay wise, a game where you have a meaningful final level and a boss works a lot better than one where the ending is literally a hopeless battle against Guardians. Well, thank you, Gaming Reinvented. I do think you're right, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity's focus on time travel is probably the right way to go. However, I'm going to drop a hot take here myself. I don't like Dynasty Warriors or Muso games, and actually don't consider Hyrule Warriors canon. Next up we got Gamer Guy, and Gamer Guy says Twilight Princess and Majora's Mask Skyward Sword are my least favourite games of the entire series. My top 5 are as follows: Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Link to the Past, Wind Waker, and the original NES Legend of Zelda. Well, thank you, Gamer Guy. Good list, albeit a little bit top heavy with recent games. I would say my top 5 would be A Link to the Past, Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, and Zelda 2. Yes, Zelda 2, I said it, it was my first ever Zelda game, so I've got this weird nostalgic view of that game. There are some elements I do like about the list: Breath of the Wild, Link to the Past, and Wind Waker, very, very good choices there. As I say, a little bit top heavy on the most recent titles. Next up we got Vian Abdullah, and Vian says Majora's Mask 3D is a fantastic remaster. I don't think it's a hated game overall, but some YouTubers have complained about aspects like Zora swimming and Deku hopping, while ignoring the massive improvements to the UI, the graphics, the performance, the save system, and how you do side quests. Well, thank you, Vian. I actually agree with this one. Majora's Mask 3D is a good remaster. Sometimes YouTubers just hate on things for the sake of it for views. And yes, I do see the irony of me saying this during a reaction to your hot take video, but I definitely would like to see another Majora's Mask remaster, this time with modern graphics and also better camera controls to bring Majora's Mask to the mass market. Next up we got Christoph Kamel, and Christoph says, a 2D side-scrolling Metroidvania Zelda game akin to Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom would be the best Zelda ever. Well, thank you, Christoph. I totally agree with this one. Personally, I'd love to see Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, brought back as a Metroidvania Zelda hybrid. Next up we got Dr. Shemp, and Doctor says, I'm personally not a fan of the more sci-fi heavy elements in the more recent entries of the franchise. I enjoy the medieval fantasy so much more, and when the magic is traded in for technology, my interest is traded in for disappointment. Well, thank you, Doctor. I think there's a very good line there about your interest being traded for disappointment. I do agree with this take. I also prefer the fantasy elements too. There are rumours that the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past was supposed to have a sci-fi futuristic third world, but eventually it got scrapped. You know, they thought that 3 worlds would get too complicated for the audience. And there is also concept art of Princess Zelda in a futuristic dress to solidify the rumour. And also, the Triforce was planned to be 3 electronic chips. Sounds absolutely crazy to me. I'm glad Nintendo didn't really go down that sci-fi route. Next up we got Vitor Marias, and they say, Twilight Princess visuals are terrible. Colours have no saturation, piss filter, grimdark stuff, and the preference for it doesn't show maturity. More like a teenage angsty edgy behaviour. It's possible to depict mature themes with a light-hearted visual, and Wind Waker did it better than Twilight Princess. Well, thank you, Vitor. I think a preference to visuals or art style is entirely personal. I don't really mind the art styles tried out by different Zelda games. Twilight Princess was a result of the audience reaction to Wind Waker. People went absolutely crazy when Wind Waker first came out on the GameCube. You know, I was just happy to get a new Zelda game, to be honest. For me, it's about the gameplay and the mechanics. You know, riding the seas annoyed me more in Wind Waker than the visuals did. No, but going back to Twilight Princess, I see what you're saying, but I don't think a preference for it doesn't show maturity. You know, I think people of all ages can like or dislike a variety of styles, and again, on the gameplay aspect, I wasn't really a fan of playing as the wolf in Twilight Princess, rather than having any issues with the visuals myself. Next up we got Mark Car 8, and they say, when Nintendo uses force controls for any game, especially Zelda games, such as the touchscreen controls, you know, I hated blowing into the mic to play the pan flute, you know, as most of the notes wouldn't register, and also forcing swinging movements on the Wii. Well, thank you, Mark Car. I see what you mean here. You know, Nintendo does have to incentivise their audience to use these new technology gimmicks. You know, while the motion controls did get boring in Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, at the time, I do think it was a pretty good concept. I actually like blowing into the mic to play the flute. You know, I think that's pretty neat. However, Nintendo does sometimes go over the top with its quote-unquote innovations. They should be solving a user need, like the analog stick and the camera controls on the N64 controller, and the innovation or invention shouldn't be done just for the sake of it. And it's going to be interesting to see what Nintendo do with the Switch 2 and how it's received if they decide to put something into the next Zelda game, because Zelda games tend to drive console sales, and they usually jump on the bandwagon when it comes to Nintendo gimmicks. Next up we got Diogenes Student, and they say, I never want to see Wind Waker remade again after this time, ever. You know, I'm not really sure how you could remake Wind Waker, to be honest. The graphics for me stand the test of time, much better than Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword. You know, we've also seen what a 2D Wind Waker could be with Phantom Hourglass, so I doubt we're going to see Wind Waker remade from the ground up. Yes, we've been hearing about the Wind Waker HD port to Switch for literal years. That's probably most likely down to Nintendo porting so many games from the Wii U to the Switch. You can't really blame them though. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is essentially a Wii U game that sold nearly 70 million copies. That is absolutely mind-blowing. It sold 2 million copies in the final quarter of 2024 alone, which is more than new games like Dragon Age The Veilguard. Just goes to show that Wii U games were great, but the Wii U didn't really work out at the time. Next up we got Dark Dragon Medeus, and they have a few hot takes here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to respond to them as they come up. So, first of all, Majora's Mask was a phenomenal sequel that was a huge improvement over Ocarina of Time and paved the way for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom based on how much freedom you had to move around or bypass things. Well, yes, Majora's Mask was a great sequel. It's incredible that they made it in such a short space of time, especially when comparing the dev time from Ocarina and Majora's to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But I'm not really sure how much influence Majora's Mask had over the modern day open world games. You know, you've just got hints of open world in there. I definitely think other things gave more influence to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Next up we got Wind Waker. Wind Waker is what I consider to be the weakest 3D Zelda title. It's still an amazing game, but the parrying mechanic literally took all the challenge out of the game that it could have had. Well, personally, I don't agree that Wind Waker is the weakest 3D Zelda game. I would have to give that unfortunate accolade to Skyward Sword. Next up, the Oracle games are grossly underrated and a product of the time showcasing what 2D Zelda games should be more like. Well, yes, I do think this is a good take. The Oracle games are underrated, and hopefully we're going to see a remake or remaster one day sometime soon. Next up, A Link to the Past is still the best Zelda game besides Tears of the Kingdom, and I do have to agree with this one. A Link to the Past is a near perfect Zelda game for me. Next up, Skyward Sword is a top 5 caliber Zelda title and was the best 3D Zelda besides Majora's Mask when it first came out. Sorry Dark Dragon, I don't agree with this one. I am not a fan of Skyward Sword. Then we got Echoes of Wisdom was almost a top 5 caliber. It was a phenomenal masterpiece that really could have paved the way for future top-down Zelda titles. Echoes of Wisdom was fun, although the buzz died down very, very quickly. While I think the mechanics were interesting, looking back now after a few months, I don't actually think it's up there with other Zelda games. It's a little bit too passive with its combat mechanics. Then we got Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link was not the worst mainline game in the series. You look at Triforce Heroes for that, and I definitely agree with this take. Zelda 2 is great, and I would love to see it come back one day. And finally, Dark Dragon says, so this is more of a warm take, but Tears of the Kingdom was the perfect sequel that blew Breath of the Wild out of the water in every way and made it look like a tech demo. Well, yes, I do agree, Tears of the Kingdom was excellent. I don't really get the hate, to be honest. Objectively, it is better than Breath of the Wild in nearly every way. Well, finally, we've got another one from Mark Cart 8, and they say the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess is overrated. It's an okay to good game. You know, it's one in the series that goes too far to try and look too realistic, while the others don't. I'm not really sure about this one, Mark Cart. I do rate Twilight Princess. The story is fantastic. You know, while some of the wolf mechanics don't quite work for me, you know, I think there's a lot about this game to love. Well, that is it for your Zelda hot takes and my responses. You know, as for my hot takes, well, I think Zelda 2 deserves a lot more love than we give it, and Tears of the Kingdom just really isn't that bad. The fact that it came out with 0 bugs and that level of game physics is almost a miracle of game development, and if you complain about it, then, well, that's just why we don't get nice things. Well, I'm going to be back another day with more Zelda hot takes, but let me know in the comments if you like this kind of video. It's a little bit different for me, and want to put out some variety on the channel, while we've got a little bit of quieter time regarding Zelda news. Well, as I say, let me know what you think in the comments, but that is it for this video today, me responding to your Legend of Zelda hot takes. And as always, thank you so much for watching or for listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for even more Zelda content here on Trifroce Times. You can also like the video and share the video too, that would help me out here on the channel. Well, thanks again, and I will see you real soon. Well, this video is brought to you by Triforce Times Backstage. This is available through Patron or YouTube membership, and you're going to get exclusive benefits, plus you'll be able to go above and beyond to support Triforce Times. Free content is core to Triforce Times, and you can continue to enjoy these videos that you know and love. However, if you want to enjoy the benefits like early access, our community Discord, shoutouts in the credits of videos, content polls and exclusive videos, then select the tier that is right for you and join Triforce Times Backstage today. So help me make Triforce Times be even bigger and better, plus you're going to get some added benefits for a small fee every month. Well, thank you for listening, and now it is time to go back to the video.